Good morning, everybody. Thank you for logging in and for being here in person at the Blue Springs Chamber. I'm Laura Sykes, and I'm an independent HR consultant here at Blue Springs, and I'm also a volunteer for these sessions. Today, we have Amy Moyer, who worked in product development for Hallmark Cards for 15 years, and she worked on everything from Christmas cards to gift products. And after that, she went into corporate communications and business-to-business marketing in the architecture, engineering, and construction industries. And now she's combining her design and marketing experience into a single source. Today's presentation is how to communicate your brand virtually. If we want to just quickly go around the room and just name, business, and what you're hoping to get out of the presentation today. Anybody wants to start?
Right. I'm Glenn Nash from Blue Springs Christian Church. I just like to learn what is my role in my church, and so
I'm Eric Sporing, financial advisor, owner of ECS Capital Investments. I know this kind of like Lens is an area I need to focus on and do a little better on in my business, being a one-man shop and calls. I can help.
Steve Sturtman with the benefits, individual and group benefits package. So just changing and putting everything from two different companies under one name. I think this would be, I got tired of being Steve the Aflac guy, Steve the health guy, and people get confused. So I put it in one name, and how can I need to do better no matter how it is. I can do better at this.
Great.
My name is Barbara Scott, and I work for Reese Nichols, and I just thought this might be something that help me create a brand
Great.
for myself.
Great. And then Amanda, it looks like we have you on the Zoom. Did you want to do a quick introduction and what you're looking for in this meeting?
Sure, I can. My name's Amanda Hetherington. I work for Blue Ridge Bank. I'm a marketing specialist. I really just enjoy listening and watching these presentations just to get some, professional perspective and see what other people are doing.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so branding is something near and dear to my heart. Obviously, I work in it every day. The one thing I like to start with is, what does everybody think of when you think of branding? Like real answers. This isn't one of those that I pretend to wait and then I just go on.
Like commercials when you see the brand recognition.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Logo.
a lot of people think about the logo and all of that, but your brand is more than that. Jeff Bezos said your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's really more about your reputation, and there's a lot of things that go into that. So like we said, a lot of people think of the brand as being your logo, typography, colors, but it's also your mission and vision for your company, your brand promise, your brand story. It could be your brand voice, how you position your product in the market, and your brand equity, which is your reputation. So I wanted to start with some of the mistakes, and so hopefully none of you fall into that. That's always a little bit awkward, and it's just kind of fun to see. Everybody has seen poor branding. So I want to start with the first mistake I see, and this one isn't as funny, but it's people who follow trends instead of building their own unique brand. So here's a couple. Does your brand look like this? Or this? Or this? So you have 9 of these that are, for the most part, they're a little bit different, but they all look very, very similar. So one of these is for a vintage barn, which I'm assuming is an event space. We've got jewelry designer, and we've got a wedding planner. So if you were looking for one of these people, how would you know which one of them to choose? Because if you don't stand out in a crowd, you're just noise. And so that is what I want to work on maybe later in this presentation. We're going to go through some of the elements to make your brand stand out in this crowd. So mistake number 2, your core purpose is not reflected in your brand. So when somebody looks at your brand, they can't kind of tell what you're about. So I did this because I thought this could represent, everybody knows NASCAR. They know what it stands for. If you saw a NASCAR logo like that, would you think, oh, performance racing?
I would think like Nestle. Food.
Like Nestle, or maybe they have a florist shop or something. So what about this? What feeling does this one give off?
Strength and the bold.
Okay.
Streamlined and sleek as well.
Sleek, I would say this would be like a luxury brand, high-end, maybe fashion luxury brand styling. And then, of course, we know this one. They've got the racing stripes and it's even going somewhere. So these are some elements that people, when you get it wrong, you can look at something and it just, there's something off about it, but you might not know what it is. Usually this is what it is. Their purpose is not lining up with what their visuals are saying. So fonts, colors, imagery, styling, they all tell your audience what you represent, what you're about, and what to expect. So mistake number 3, not thinking about your logo and branding, how it could be perceived differently. All right, so here's some bad examples. So feel free to giggle, it's fine. So this first one is kids exchange, but without the right spacing, you might perceive that differently. Same with the computer doctor. They've done a stylized, I think it's a mouse. Could be not seen as a mouse. And they just get worse, really. So I would say if you have maybe a middle schooler, they would be the best judge of, if you show them your logo and they start snickering right away, you know you've got a problem. So website domains, this can be a problem too. Without the spacing between the words, it's kind of hard to tell what the intention was. So those are some of the mistakes. And now I want to get into some of the elements that create a winning brand. So I like to always start with the vision statement. And what I have here, I don't know, I guess you can see me. Okay. So I brought in these workbooks that I can pass out to anybody who's interested here, and anybody who's online and you want, I have a PDF version if you're interested. But I work through a lot of these with my customers when we're setting up their brand. It gives them a great idea of, you know, it's like, well, I kind of know what I want my brand to be, but really we need to know what you're all about. So I like to start with the vision statement. So your vision statement is like your North Star. It's what your company is all about, where you're going. So here's Google's. We all know Google. Their vision is to provide access to the world's information in one click. Very simple. You have a clear idea of what they're doing. So I have developed a Mad Lib style vision statement that everybody can follow. You know, our vision at, insert your company name, what you do, your product or service, how you're going to impact, and what you bring to the world. So for fun, and to show you that anybody can do this, this doesn't have to be a business major or anything. I did one with my nephew. So we went through this, and that's the same one. Our vision at Ninja Dragons is to train a dragon army that creates a positive impact by teaching dragons not to roar fire in the world. So obviously we know this is an important thing because we don't want dragons roaring everywhere in the world, but easy enough that if you know what you're doing, you can put this in yourself. And your mission statement is very much tied to your vision. So we've done where you're going. Your mission statement is going to be, well, how are you going to get there? So here's Taco Bell's mission. They take pride in making the best Mexican-style fast food for their customers, providing fast, friendly, and accurate service. So they tell you what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So just like that, we have another one. Our mission is to, what do you want to do? What do you want to change? Who's this for? And how are you going to do it? So I did help him a little bit with this one, but our mission at Ninja Dragons is to make the world a safer place for people, villagers, and hobbits by creating a program that teaches dragons not to roar fire. So just in a couple minutes, you kind of have a clear idea what they're trying to do. So they have some sort of training program and you know the outcome. They don't want to roar fire in the world. All right, so another part of branding is your brand story. So why is this important to people? Why did you go into business? What are you doing this to create good in the world? So 80% of people want brands to tell memorable stories. And people who hear these stories are 55% more likely to buy that product. It kind of humanizes it. It's more approachable because that people understand stories. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can make your brand or product the hero, like it came in and saved the day. Or you can make the brand the helpful sidekick, like someone was really struggling, but once they came to use our product or service, it really made it better for them, and show that through a story. And tell stories about your brand's people, values, origin, and more. People just, they're like, well, why did you get into business? How did your business start? Who is the person behind the business? Who created this? How was it created? How do you make your product? People are just interested in stories that relate to them. So your brand voice. Who is this person behind the brand? If your brand was a person, how would you describe its personality to someone? So this is again in the workbook, but what are these elements that kind of make up your brand voice? Is it funny? Is it more serious? And how does that resonate with your customer? Is your customer looking for someone in that space that is a little bit more funny? Or are they looking for someone that's a little bit more serious and trustworthy? So there's some things that you can try to gauge so that you have a feel for how do you think your brand voice should be and how will it be perceived by your customers. So your brand promise. What is your brand going to do for your customers? How does it solve it? So what are your key offerings? Who is your target audience? What problem does it solve? How is it different than other products? So there's a lot of positioning that goes into that. How is it unique? Strong brands embrace a set of defined values. Customers who share your values are likely to become loyal advocates of your brand. Brands can become a badge of honor and become a source of self-expression to those who share the same values. So here's a couple good examples of that. Like a Toyota Prius. When you see someone who drives that, they probably really are focused on environmental friendliness. They care about Mother Earth. Mercedes might be more someone who is into social status or high-end quality. They like those things. Volvo, they're known for safety. So there's a lot of different things. One of the great stories that I think about is Apple, and this is before they had all the cell phones, but obviously I have a Mac here. In the Mac, when you buy one, they give you this Apple sticker. And then you'll see them on cars, which is funny, right? Because you bought a computer, why would you put a sticker on a car? But these people are so proud of being Mac owners that they put these Apple stickers on their cars so that other people know I'm a Mac user. So, I mean, it's just a great way to think you're building a community around your brand and to kind of keep that in mind that the people who are going to want your brand, how do they fit in this community? What's important to them? And brand equity. This is something that builds over time. This is your brand reputation. This is the hardest thing to control. It's also hard for business owners because you have your own impression of your company and what people think of your company. But how do you know that your customer has the same impression? This is where I think doing a lot of customer surveys helps. What are people enjoying about your product? What are their pain points? To make sure that you're understanding that their customer experience with your brand is what you think your customer experience is for your brand. And then I rushed through this quickly because what I want to do today is if you have brand questions, I want to be able to work through them and we can have kind of a workshop. So does anybody have any branding questions or issues that they're dealing with right now? No?
So with the branding, I meant you're using social media as well, right? I mean, that's a good place to,
It's a platform.
okay.
There's lots of different tools. It could be email. It could be print. It could be social media. It could be your website. It could be your storefront. There's all of these elements that all kind of come together. One of the things that I see a lot of times, especially with business owners of small businesses, is they will come to me and say, I am the brand. You know, they really identify, this is my baby, I created this, the brand is me. And now, once they get to, I don't know, 3 to 5 years and they're looking at scaling, okay, you're the brand, you know the brand inside and out. How do you tell your employees, well, what is the brand? Because they have to be able to show the customer the brand in the same way you would. So without defining some of these things and having it accessible to their team and doing some training on it, they're not going to be able to scale and have the same feel. You know, a lot of companies will change over time because you've got new players that come in and the brand kind of changes or gets diluted by new people's thoughts, which sometimes is great and it's needed. But really, as a business owner, if you want your brand to follow a certain standard, and you need to define them and be able to tell your team. So when your company grows, the brand just grows and they all become advocates of your brand. Anybody else? Online? I don't know. I can't see. Oh, are they texting me?
Much differences are between a product and a service.
That's right.
That is a good question. So your product has a customer experience, just like your service has a customer experience. In some ways, I think a service might be easier to kind of track the customer experience because there's probably someone there with the customer guiding them through it. Like, I'm going to go out to your house and I'm going to provide this service, like fix your HVAC system or whatever. So you can see the points that they're going through, whereas a product, a lot of times you'll do some of the front end work of sales and explaining the product, but then they kind of go off and use the product and maybe they use it in a way that wasn't intended and they may have a good or a bad experience. And so that's kind of why you need to circle back around with some of the surveys and just to see, because people, you set something up and you give them instructions and then someone will come up with something that you never thought to tell them not to do. You know, it always happens. I mean, if you have kids, you know this, right? You're like, I would have never thought to tell you not to do that. So,
Do not try this at home.
right. So, I mean, they're similar, but they're a little bit different. As a business owner, I would advise having a mix of both, really. Have things that complement. You have a product and maybe there's a service you can provide that complements this product.
You get the idea of surveys. You can go about that. Just getting into that. Without having a lot of baggage into stuff.
Well, you could do an online survey, or you could go old school and if you have some customers that are key customers, call them up. Say, you know, it was really important to me that you had a good experience and I wanted to talk to you about that. you have any feedback for us? What did you like about it? It's a great way to get testimonials for your website or social media, is to ask them how their experience was. If it was a great experience, then you have a testimonial that you can put up. And if it wasn't, now you've got some great feedback to improve your product or service. So it's only win-win.
Speaking of surveys, and
Yeah.
going further, because people get bombarded today with
They do.
everything. And, even though they're your clients or,
Mhm.
you're trying to capture new clients, how often should you hit them? We're always trying to improve things, right?
Sure.
I mean, is that a yearly survey? Is that a quarterly, semi-annually? Or is there a number really?
I don't know that there's a set number.
It might depend on the business, on the
It-
service provider.
I
as
would
well.
think so. Like, if you have somebody going out for an HVAC visit, he will have just visited, I would say, give it maybe a week and then reach out to that person. It could be an online survey or something. If you are in something that has more touch points, like they're coming to you more often, I think it could be more often, and I would make it much shorter. And like in a retail or a food environment, if you want some feedback, you could attach a coupon for filling this out. We're going to give you 50 cents off of. So there's some reason for them to do it. It's like, okay, well, that's worth my time. Especially if you're going to be doing it more often, I think you need to be willing to give a little bit more back.
Keeping with that theme, is there a program, survey like that you recommend?
I use SurveyMonkey for mine. I think there's also some way to use Google Forms, which would be a cheap option. I know everybody's looking for what's the cheapest and easiest platform I can use.
So I've never heard of SurveyMonkey, and then is it you can create.
You can
any
create the
type of
questions.
survey?
They'll give you a couple template options, and you can put in your questions and then say, do you want them to rank it like 1 to 5? Do you want them to do a drop down menu of options, or do you want them just to write in their response? It gives you a couple options like that. I think there is a fee based on how many email addresses you're sending out. I know there used to be a free version. I don't know if
There
there's,
still is.
there still is.
But then
Okay.
you only get like 50 responses for free, and then it'll stop it. So yeah, you do need to, right?
50 responses to that
To that
survey, or
survey.
50 total,
No,
just to one
that
survey?
Yeah, I think the Google Forms is what I was switching to when I had a customer that didn't want to pay anything. I'm like, okay, this will at least give us the responses, and we can read them and see what's coming back. And you would still have to collect all your email addresses, download them out of whatever system you use. I don't know. Anything else?
How would you go about creating a brand within a brand?
Oh, a sub-brand?
Because
Yeah.
Reese Nichols has its own brand,
Sure.
but then there are tons.
But then you're also a brand. I would think that you would try to keep some of the same elements so that they know that there's this connection. Like,
Well, you have to legal.
well, there you
I
go.
have to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would have probably their logo in the corner, and you would adopt maybe some of their fonts and colors. But then you could make some changes on your own. Like maybe you have your own brand icon, your own logo for your name. You could have your own tagline. So houses anywhere, or I can sell any house. There's some things you can do that way that still links you with the overall brand, but it differentiates you, and it's not just your name put on a different sign. A little bit more special.
How long does the process of rebranding
A large company will spend 6 months to a year to rebrand. It also depends how much you have out there. Like if you have signs on your building, you're gonna have to change your signage. You're gonna have to change your business cards, your letterhead, your website. It can take some time. You could, if you don't have much out there, you could probably do it in a couple weeks.
And then how much, I understand it probably depends as well, but how much effort is needed, like, you know, the Twitters and the Facebooks and the LinkedIn and all this stuff, that, how much of that is needed to kind of jumpstart the rebranding? To
You,
get it out there for, like, if you're in the virtual setting?
there's a couple variables. Do you already have a brand and you are rebranding to something vastly different? If so, it might look like it's a brand new company, and that's going to take a lot more effort. If you're just kind of tweaking your brand, like creating a sub brand or something, it's probably going to be a lot quicker. You know, now offering this sub brand of this, and it could just be a quick launch and just letting your customers know that, hey, in addition to this, we've created this other brand, and it's going to solve this solution. So. Anybody online? Any questions? Did I lose you?
No questions yet.
Okay.
So in our modern social media world that we live in, and I think it probably depends on product and service, that type of thing, but are there things that you are seeing that work better than others?
Anytime you can create a community around something, which as a church, you are in the service category. So you create a community where people feel part of it, they can contribute content to it. The community is what really gets engagement. When somebody feels like they are part of your brand and not experiencing your brand. So.
So, quick question.
Sure.
We're talking about add-on products, and that is something that I have done through the pandemic, is I have added on services. You're talking about rebranding. So, I never even thought about this. Brought up
Sure.
about, you know, rebranding that out there. And on, I haven't really branded it.
The one question I would ask is, you said you offered a service in addition to a product?
I'm a financial advisor.
Okay.
Financial services. Then I went out and bolted on auto and home insurance.
Okay, so I think those are pretty well, they're in the same family, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, and I started a jewelry business. So I would say, since yours kind of complement each other, they can live under a same brand.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
But if you did something else like, you know, I paint pinstriping on custom cars, that's not going to really fit into that same family. And you should probably, that's a separate brand. Yeah. And sometimes it's a little hard to tell, you know, what's close enough that they can work together under the same brand and what really needs to kind of go off on its own so that it doesn't dilute or confuse your customers. Like, you also sell vacuums, but then you do this and this and this. How do those all work
For all of the different pieces, like the LinkedIn's and the Facebooks and the websites, what do you recommend are kind of the key areas for messaging out, as far as, I stay away from Facebook because I feel like that's more social and not business, so I focus on LinkedIn and website. Are those, for any kind of branding, are those still kind of the key areas, or do you recommend other areas, just as a general?
The first thing I would ask is, who is your customer? Who are you wanting to attract?
Okay.
Where are they? Because you don't want to be sending a message and then they're over here. They're not even getting your message because they're not on your platform. So I know a lot of people have said, oh, I'm not on Facebook. And honestly, Facebook for the right demographic is doing it. We have restaurant. Restaurant is killing it on Facebook. People are always going out engaging with their brand on Facebook. So just because it's not a professional platform, I wouldn't discount it. You can still talk to them and tell them about events that are going on. You can engage with them that way. And what was your?
I'm an HR consultant.
Okay.
So it's more in the
Yours
business
is-
realm.
Yours is probably more LinkedIn based, I would think, because you're trying to get some of the larger companies, I would think.
But then in the insurance,
Yep.
Eric and I, we
Yeah.
could use either or.
Yep.
And I'm guilty of staying away from Facebook just because I get tired of all the stuff that goes with it. So I just avoid it like the plague.
Let me teach you the best thing, and I've had to do this to my own family. Snooze for 30 days. You don't unfriend them, you just hit the snooze for 30 days, and then all of the nonsense that you like to talk about just doesn't come in my feed.
Done that myself.
Right? You're like, huh, I feel so much better now.
Yeah, I just kind of stay, just to stay off, just leave it alone. I don't get on it very often. That stuff is kind of eliminated itself, but it's still stuff I don't really care about.
Sure.
So, but on the flip side, I don't have an problem with creating a separate page for business.
Yes.
And have it there
For
that
sure.
way that I can reach out and have it.
And it's really easy to set up events on Facebook, and you can even push them out. There's some demographics, like if you get into the ad manager on the back end, you can say, I want to target people from this age to this age within 15, 20 miles from this zip code. You can kind of dig down and send an ad out to somebody that is going to be more likely to use your services than just sending it out into the wind.
Also, Facebook is a different age demographic than like Instagram.
It is.
Instagram is a younger.
Yes. And that's why it really matters who your customer is.
Yeah.
It really does. Because I would think that yours, Facebook would probably be pretty good for you
We
because,
do all of them.
well, yeah, if you have
LinkedIn,
time.
Facebook, Twitter. Exactly, if you have time. But now they have services that will put out your content.
Yeah,
But
there's
there
some,
again, you have to be careful because it's not based upon your specific, you know what I mean? It's very generic.
So back a little bit of like, I'm not an Instagram guy, and I don't do Instagram.
I think that's okay for insurance.
But and then
Yeah,
help me out here. I'm not an Instagram person, but
sure.
who's using Instagram?
It's going to be the younger generation. So if you are a wedding planner, you should be on Instagram.
So when you say younger generation, I get teens, but are we talking
20
20-something?
I would say
Yeah,
20s.
they invest, they need insurance?
Yep, they do. Are they looking for it?
That's, I guess, what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
at is it a platform I should be using brand to? If you say you guys, you guys see any traction off of Instagram? I mean, I don't know.
With the younger generation.
Yes, exactly. I meant maybe buying houses, maybe
But
not.
it's a quicker, it's not a long and involved thing. It's more of like a picture and a little blurb. I mean,
It's
very,
really good for aspirational brands.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, like something that you can do a beautiful photo, and yours is more of an abstract concept, so it's really hard to show, you know, a beautiful floral arrangement and tie it to your product. It's very photo driven.
Okay.
So yours is more concept driven, so you're probably going to have to work a little harder on the community and kind of some of the messaging aspects of it. So, I mean, while you could use it, it's going to be extra time that you could spend on something
As you
else.
said, it's tough already trying to get, you know,
Sure.
all four of them.
Yeah, that pretty picture, somebody in a car crash.
No, stability and safety. No,
I can
stability,
see
safety.
now why your branding isn't working.
Yeah. So, Twitter,
Yeah.
kind of the same thing.
Twitter is really good for messaging. So if you want to send a message out, I don't see it as good for the engagement, like the back and forth. But if you want to send a quick message out, like even, hey, we've got an open house coming up. It's a good way to shove that out. And maybe you could put a little link to the MLS listing so that they could look at it ahead of time. But it's not really the back and forth communication. So, I mean, it could be. I would think that you would do well with the blog because you're going to need to explain things.
And I've tried starting that blog, and
It's a lot of work.
It is, and I'm, like I said, one-man shop.
Yeah,
So.
that's a lot of work. But you have I know it doesn't seem complex to you, but you have a complex product or service that you are selling that's a little bit abstract. People have to think beyond today, and that's kind of a hard sell.
Many years.
Yeah.
For some.
All right. Well, does anybody want a workbook? And you can look through this maybe if you have time now. We can go through. It's got who your customer is. Oh, hold on. I think I have to put a mask on because I'm coming within 6 feet. I got spoiled up here in the corner.
And that, how they are. I don't know, I walked in the middle, but I don't know, set up and tired of what's going on and what your outlet is to survive.
This is kind of what I work with customers is sometimes they'll have a good idea of who they are and what they're doing, and sometimes they don't.
This is good. I like how it asks questions.
Sure.
To help you create.
Yeah. So your product, let's see what page is that? Page 6, your key product. See how there's supporting products? They can all go under one brand as long as they kind of work well together. There's not an off-all in there. And then the customer. And usually what people really like is kind of defining the personality of their brand. That's what helps me if I'm working with somebody is how do you see your brand? You know, do you see it as this luxury brand or do you want it to be a little bit more casual? Because when I'm coming up with imagery for that, I want it to support their idea of what it is.
Pros and cons of naming business after yourself.
Oh, great. AmyMoyer design. Okay, so I get asked this actually quite a bit. What do you want to do with your business ultimately? Do you want to grow it into $1 million company and then sell it? Or is your business you? Because if you want to grow it and sell it, probably I would not name it after you. But if you are the business, then it's not like you could hand it off to somebody else to do it. So those are things to think about. What's your business?
What's my business?
Yeah.
In church? Probably leadership in life.
Okay. That might be based on your years of experience and it, you know.
Like a Tom Ferry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I see a lot of people even come up with a catchy name or whatever, but some use their names.
Tony Robbins.
Yes. So it's just the pros and cons of that rather than.
Well, and think of the Tony Robbins. I'm sure that there will be a company named Tony Robbins after he is no longer associated with it, but he's who you think of.
Yeah.
So he's absolutely crucial to the brand. Cubby, I think, is similar to that. So I don't know. That's one of the questions I would ask yourself is what do you want to do with it long term? You know, is it going to be something that you build up, sell? Going to be something you leave to your kids, or is it, oh, well, this is what I do, so I need to brand what I'm doing? And if you are basically the product, your knowledge and your skills that you're counseling with people, then maybe it's fine for it to be you. That's what they're paying for is your experience.
pros and cons to building your own website versus having somebody else do it.
What do you want your website to do?
My brand, yeah.
If you want a landing page that's very simple, that has how to contact you, you can absolutely do that yourself. There's a lot of plug and play applications that'll help you build it yourself. If you want it to create sales funnels and some blogs, and there's a lot more to that. And you're going to probably want somebody to build that for you. So it just comes down to what do you want it to do? Because not everybody's website functions the same. Does it bring in sales? Does it educate? Yeah.
Plus, then you have a pro working on something that you should be spending your time on other stuff.
Yeah, that's what I hear too. Is, how much would you pay somebody to do it versus
Sure.
paying yourself to do it? And it takes away from other things.
Well, they have a lot of services where you can, they'll have a group of different people, and you can tell them like what you're wanting, and then they can submit ideas, and then you choose the idea that you like, and then work with them.
There are logos, dozen people.
And websites as well.
Yeah. The one thing I do caution people about, because people ask me about Fiverr. Like, oh, I can get a website or a logo for $25 or $50. Good. But saw those circle logos? Think of, these are business owners too. So what would it cost? What would you have to do to be able to provide your product or service for $50 to somebody?
Right.
Because they're a business owner. So probably what they're doing is they're drawing something and then they're just tweaking minor details. Because I mean, that's how they have to make money too. So now you've got a logo that might look like 50 other logos. So if it's for like an event or something, I would say, go ahead, use Fiverr. That's a cheap option. Your event will end at some point and then you won't have any cease and desist letters. But if it's for your company brand, I would probably not.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because you don't want to do a search later, 3 months later, and find 10 other companies that look almost identical to your logo. So. Who has personas for their company? Who knows who they're targeting?
Anybody that walks.
Anyone?
Exactly.
Okay, that's a little broad.
Everybody needs a home,
Everybody does need a home.
Everybody needs to invest.
unless they want to rent.
Okay.
There are differing opinions in my world.
Sure.
Targeting everybody or targeting, and basically they're saying we target nobody at that point. And so ours is a young couple with kids.
Sure.
That narrows it down to
That's narrow.
a range that
Uh-huh.
may not be that age group.
Sure. But you know the kind of things that you should be offering to them. So events for kids, childcare options, Sunday school classes, some of those things. It kind of helps you define what you're doing if you know who your audience is.
That's interesting to me that a church has changed, because before I had assuming, you know what they say about that, that it was older couples who were established, who were, you know, a place to go and socialize, and so that's interesting to me that now that it has changed to younger.
And we, in our study, we see the age ratcheting up a little bit at one time. Our median age is and it's probably upper 30s, but probably more
It makes a lot of sense from a growth, because once you are an older couple, how are you going to bring in other older couples versus
Right.
younger families with kids? They're going to grow, and you're going to be able to keep pulling in younger generations that can grow with the church or business, whatever.
Right.
So I know a lot of real estate people sometimes find a niche. So it's like, I work with the people who are selling their house and downsizing. So then you can say that you are a specialist, and I can get your house sold, and I can find you what will be the perfect property, because this is all I do. So a lot of people have a niche like that, or I can get you your starter home, because I know all the areas that those are in.
There's a lot of different ways they do it.
Sure. Well, I don't know that there was anything up there.
Oh. Oh, okay.
There it is. I think it just went to sleep.
So on that, well,
Yeah.
you, and then, okay, so find a niche, I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way, and then, I deal with parents that open custodian accounts for their kids that are minors, so I'm not in the kids, parents, but 18-year-olds on up to 8.
But is
So-
the 18-year-old really your customer, or is it the parent of the 18-year-old that's your
Once they,
customer?
I say once they
Yeah.
turn 18, they're, but I've got 18-year-olds
That approach you?
that have accounts. 18, 19, 20-year-olds.
Well,
But,
those are the things you would need to show them the benefit of keeping after the parents stop.
and it does, and let me
Yeah.
take that off the table, where I've got minors, accounts. It's just, I got a young lady I'm meeting with on Friday, she's 19 years old. My finance teacher in high school said I need to hire her.
Wow, that's good.
But that's my point is.
Yeah.
I'm like, you kind of, look, anybody that walks, right? So that's tough to brand, right? And I mean,
Well-
there's a big gap there.
I'm going to challenge you. You can have more than one customer. If I were you, I would break yours down into age ranges or life stages and think,
I like
what
that.
message is someone in that life stage going to want to hear or need to hear? Because it's going to be different for the 20-year-old than it is for the 65-year-old.
Right.
And so if you think of just your different customers as, pick one kind of person in your mind for that person, and I'm going to talk to that person. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to talk to this person who's in a different life stage and is going to need different products, services. Might be, at that point, they might be, how do I use all of this retirement money that I've been saving forever? What are the tips and tricks to start using it after I have the mentality, no, save it? It's like, well, this is what it's here for.
That's
So-
interesting though, because like when I very first, the only reason that I started investing early when I was in my 20s was because there was a guy who used to work at Shawnee Mission Medical Center in the laboratory there. And he pushed and pushed and pushed. You need to start this now. Compound interest, blah, 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 blah. Start it now, just a little, blah, blah, blah. But that's why I started,
Yeah.
because he put the idea in my head and said, it's a lot easier, and look at what compound interest does, and blah, blah, blah.
Time.
It was interesting, but yeah,
Perfect. I mean, like I said,
it's a lot easier if you start early than if you wait till you're,
but like I said, it's tough trying to come up with a brand because you're so wide. An 80-year-old or a 60-year-old isn't the same as an 18 and 20-year-old.
Sure.
but that
So-
makes sense.
So breaking it down into
Yeah.
different channels.
And that's a challenge for me too, because I know what our target focus is, our person that we're really. But I don't work in that age group. I work in broad spectrum of roles, rather than that family. So I struggle back and forth with that. Serve everybody, but our marketing, our niche, I guess,
Can somebody focus on that and then leave you open to focus on another demographic?
oh, sure.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'll go back, I'm sorry,
No, you're
backtracking
fine.
again, talk about Instagram. I mean, if
Mhm.
I'm breaking this up, that younger group, that's Instagram, right?
It could be Instagram.
If you're trying to reach them. So I don't use Instagram. I don't know that I've ever been on Instagram.
So Instagram, the only thing that I don't like about Instagram is that you can't put links in there.
Okay, that was gonna be one of my
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
because you're like, it's just pictures
Right.
and blurs, or if I could put a link in there and click on somewhere. But
exactly.
you can't.
Back to your website or whatnot.
Yeah, you can put it like in your bio section, like when they click on it, it shows whose page it is. But it's not great for, like, I will have 3 tips to do, or the 3 mistakes you're making in branding. If I put that on Instagram, they'd click on it and it'd be like, unless you had them broken up into different squares and it made a little story, but still there's no link. It's not easy for them to link to it and get more
Get
information
somewhere.
and get to me. So for me, it's a little bit harder. I can put, like, my portfolio would be great. And I mean, if you wanted to, maybe it's,
Can you do videos?
Yes, again.
you can do videos.
Is it?
You do
there a-
videos.
Is there a limit? I mean, it's like a 2-minute video. Is
Mm.
there-
Shorter is always better, they say.
You'll have to look that up.
Okay,
You
I
could do
didn't-
a quick video, but again, I mean, that might be good for a quick blurb. It's hard still to get to you. Like, they can't just click on your link and go to your website to
Yeah.
contact you. But I mean, if you had your phone number down at the bottom or something at the end.
Well, my videos that I do, I
Yeah.
have at the end of my video it pops up.
I wonder if that would be good for like an educational focus. Like you said, somebody told me about this a long time ago and I stuck with it, or, that might be
Sure,
a better use of it.
testimonials, for
Just to
sure.
throw information out so that it starts them thinking. And then the more times they see it, then
They
they,
think,
then they Google search you and
Can
find
you
you.
get-
So at least the educational side to get them thinking about it.
Yeah.
That
Can you
might
get a
work.
testimonial from a younger person and why they invest? Here's why I invest.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
Who do you turn to for education in this area? Reading,
For education, like,
marketing, design.
oh, I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn is great for content. They'll put out a lot of great education on articles on LinkedIn that you can click on and you can connect with them. And there's different organizations that work with marketing.
I don't know, you're probably familiar with Donald Miller, Story Brand.
Yep.
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 I think
Sure. Yeah, and everybody has their own way of doing it too.
Mhm.
Because you'll hear certain people say, don't spend any money on your brand, only focus it into sales. You're like, no. Don't do any promotional items. That's just throwing money away.
One of your
So-
slides, I saw, don't be the hero, be the,
Yep,
that's Donald Miller's.
Yeah.
Don't be the hero, be the
sidekick.
sidekick.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, I can't take his material. So,
Be the guide. Because
Guide.
don't be the hero,
be the trusted advisor.
That's what Reese Nichols is.
Mhm.
They're real estate. Advice. But for me, this
Sure.
is a new venture because I would always work in the laboratory. And so it's interesting to me because I'm a Facebook, that's what I know, but trying to branch out and do the LinkedIn and it's like, that's too much crap. We have like Paradigm that posts to each thing, but like I said, it's
Yeah.
it's not you,
Right.
it's just, so that to me is the struggle of trying to decide what you're going to put your focus on and
Right.
work mainly on that.
And that's really what it comes down to is you could work on every single one of these platforms, but it's going to take time and effort. You're going to have to come up with the content. And you're going to have to make sure the content is different based on the platforms in case somebody's on multiple platforms, they're not getting exactly the same message. So I usually say if you're starting out, just focus on one or two and really get your traction there before, because if you're splitting your energy on too many different platforms, you're just not going to get traction anywhere.
Well, and it's interesting to me as well, when you said it's creating content that engages, because I can send crap out all day long,
Sure.
and people are just like, yeah, whatever. But it's when you engage, like you said, that I've had the most. Yeah.
You can put like
Surveys,
two
short
different
surveys,
kitchens side by side.
Yeah.
Which kitchen design do you like better? And see what the results are. It could be that people are like, oh, that's a really cool kitchen. Is that house for sale? Funny you should ask.
Yeah. But it is interesting how what grabs people's attention and causes them.
And everybody has opinions.
Oh, boy, howdy.
They seem pretty eager to share them too. So.
Painfully so. But yeah, that's like Facebook. Some of that stuff, definitely. I had to snooze my uncle. I was like, okay, no more.
Well, I just got tired of some of the people I went to high school with. Well, today was a great day. The baby didn't.
Exactly.
And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Or this is a beautiful poem. Okay, well, that's nice. You want to share it, but I don't.
Yeah, I had Cocoa Puffs for breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah, my cousin's wife. I love her dad, but she doesn't have to work. So it was a great day at the gym. We went to the beach and worked out, and then we're enjoying our cocktails here. Or we went there, and it's like, I don't need to know what you do every minute of the day, Crystal. Just chill, And it's not. I think she's back up.
What amazes me too is what people will share on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That's craziness.
No, I've got a dog who gets on it. He'll like, this guy's yelling at me. I'm like, why do you do that? Just stop. You didn't need to get involved in the first place. You're wondering why. Just stop. But he's that in Facebook. If you want to know something, you don't need to know because he can tell you what happened. Because he's on Facebook constantly trolling. He does nothing with his life other than sit in front of a computer.
Okay, so his behavior tells you something. He needs connection.
Yeah.
That's why connecting with your audience is so important. There's so many people that are posting all these breakfast cereals and things. What do they want? They want to feel connected to people. They want to feel like people care and hit the like button or comment on it. So really, it's these behaviors behind it that you can kind of tell. What are people's needs? As a business owner, you can see their needs because they're inadvertently spilling it all day long.
Yeah.
So, something to think about.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Any other questions? We do have a 30-minute buffer, so
Okay.
As far as if anybody wants to talk one-on-one,
Sure.
we built in the buffer to give folks the opportunity to ask individual questions as well. Is there still somebody on the?
We've got, I think, 3 people.
Oh, great.
One is a telephone icon, so I don't know who they are.
Alrighty. So thank you, Amy, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Our next Power Hour will be on November the 17th at 8:30 a.m. The meeting topic is going to be working backwards to develop a marketing plan to get you seen. That ties on a little bit to this as well.
Good.
Brantley's going to be here discussing that. So again, if you have time and you can spend a little bit, if you have one-on-one questions or if anybody on the Zoom wants to just hang out and ask questions, we'll be here.
All righty.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.